I promised today I'm going to speak about Poland, NATO, Poland, European Union. I would like to more concentrate not on the processes of joining NATO and the European Union, which is not interesting, but about our presence inside both organizations. First, I will touch the problem of Poland and NATO. Poland became the NATO member in 1999. So we can say that we are, at this moment, rather old member of NATO, speaking about the years we have behind. The years since we started our transformation in 1999, we can labeled as a pre-accession period. The top priority, as I said during the previous meetings, for Poland was at first the question of security. How to place Poland in new geostrategic reality. How behave in the new situation, having on one hand Russia, on second Germany, and belonging to no institution who could serve us as an institution of security. The next problem we've had, it is number of Polish neighbors. That in 1 year, from 3, we found to have 6 new neighbors. Russia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Czechoslovakia, then divided into Slovakia and Czech Republic, and United Germany. Poland found itself outside any alliances because the old alliances disappeared and new alliances do not invite it. And it is a problem how to escape from the grey zone. It is nothing worse for the state than to be placed in the grey zone, because nobody cares about such a state. It is why security issue dominated Polish foreign policy from the very first moment of the transformation. External security starts to be a paramount principle and the most important task for the Polish foreign relation. We have 2 choices: to join existing institution, and the only choice was NATO, or to be neutral. To be neutral in Europe in these circumstances was unrealistic approach. It is why the only realistic approach was go to Euro-Atlantic alliance. And it was orientation which dominated all Polish foreign policy from the very beginning. It is why Poland adopted strategy. First, seeking accession to NATO, then to the European Union. First, security. It was main slogan for Polish foreign policy after 1989. On this way to NATO, Poland focused primarily on preparing the state and the system of defense of the state to the standards the NATO expected to have in such a country. And since 1990, Poland have made substantial contribution toward this goal and toward European security, because feeling as a part of Europe, we felt that European security is the only security which can secure Polish security. That separately we have no chance in the new geostrategic situation. In 1992, Polish government decided to contribute an operational battalion to the United Nations peacekeeping forces in the region. Nearly 300 Polish soldiers took part in 3 years Operation in former Yugoslavia. Before we start to be part of the environment of security, we start to serve this security. In 1996, Polish battalion was a part of the implementation forces and then stabilization forces under NATO command in Yugoslavia. So we, step by step, were included in this new system. The period prior to NATO accession, as well as the first year of membership, were characterized by very intensive activity on many fronts. And we have focused not only on the implementation of the so-called goals of the armed forces, but also on joining the military operations conducted by the NATO. So again, not being member of the NATO, we offered the help of the Polish military officers for the many operations conducted under the NATO umbrella. NATO as an object of aspiration had remained virtually beyond the criticism. So we have seen all the weaknesses of NATO, but on the way to NATO, we do not criticize the NATO, being not yet member of the NATO. But from the other hand, because we do not like to create a new front of discussion about the NATO and participation of the new members inside those organizations. The Polish accession to NATO coincided with the intervention of Alliance air forces in Yugoslavia. The problem was that it was not confirmed by United Nations organization. So from the legal point of view, it was illegal. But from the other hand, the situation demanded some reaction from the European state. Usually in the politics, we have two situations. One, that we will be late, and it is bad. And the second, that it will be too early, and it will be bad too. And for both of such a situation, always is paid price. And then the question is, which price is bigger? To be too early or to be too late? So at the moment when the Yugoslavia was in disaster, it was necessary to start to act, not to be accused as today, for example, United Nations or NATO is accused for everything what is going on in Syria or in the North Africa. So even with the questionable legality of this activity of European Union and NATO Yugoslavia, we joined both organizations in this situation. Polish involvement in NATO military operation was at those moments purely political, because it was airstrike. So Poland supported it. It is a cost, political cost too. But financial and military, we do not participate in this action. We were, from the other hand, not allowed to participate in NATO operation before we were not accepted as a full member of those organizations. It's necessary to remember that still the most important regulation inside the NATO and the regulation everybody rely on is Article 5 of the Constitution of NATO. One for all for one. That's so-called Musketeers idea. That if any NATO state will be attacked by anybody, everybody must help immediately without any preconditions those countries. And it is what makes NATO the great attraction for all the members, because the members of the NATO knew that on behind there is a big force who at moment of insecurity will help to regain security. Poland got fully involved in alliances operation in the next phase of the intervention in Yugoslavia. But we took part, unfortunately, in the recognition of the sovereignty of Kosovo too. It was a mistake from the very beginning, and in my opinion still it is a mistake. It was used against the European Union and the NATO twice, when Russia recognized the independence of North Ossetia and Abkhazia. Just if you recognized the Western Europe, NATO and European Union, recognized the independence of Kosovo, and how to say the legal approach toward this recognition is questionable, then under the same condition we are recognized North Ossetia and Abkhazia. And unfortunately we have in Europe many such enclaves who demand an independence. Gasconia, only mentioned the most popular. But in any country in Europe, there are the regions who demand the independence. Well, for example, as you know, the situation in Belgium is shaky. The Wallons from one hand and the Francophones from the other hand. Even there is such a proverb that the only Belgian in Belgium is a king of Belgium, because the others belong to the different nations. And the really Belgian is Brussels. The other states belong to both nations. The European security and defense policy is something we dream about, and something the NATO should have, and European Union should have. But we have almost the documents. It is European Security and Defense Identity, so-called SDI. And from the other hand, we have European Security and Defense Policy, the second document. But in fact, they do not work. For Poland, crucial and the most important priority in foreign policy was and is to support the USA, which do not care about the European initiatives. So we can say that being the strongest, the most influential member of the NATO, at first the USA is conducted by own national interest, not general interest of the other members of the NATO. Even supporting unconditionally the American point of view on the NATO activity and presence, Poland was labeled as an American Trojan horse inside the NATO. It is not a nice name which was given, because if you don't know, if you remember the result of being a Trojan horse. Among the many objections to the idea of building a European army, there is other concern about the unnecessity of duplication of NATO activity. Because, as you know, there is an idea to form the EU, let's say, army, or EU forces, military forces. Then the question is, what for? Because from one hand, we have the structure of NATO, we have the regulation of NATO, and from the other hand, we have thinking that maybe it would be possible, necessary, to build the second, let's say, regular European army. because NATO do not have regular forces. The NATO means that all the countries are giving for the service to the NATO when it is necessary some part of own army. But the European idea is just to build European army under the European command. We think that it is very expensive and it is useless from the point of view of security, when there are national armies which could serve as a part of the European forces or NATO forces. Poland's position regarding European security policy was very well expressed by Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2001 at the Warsaw University. It was an occasion when the Professor Bartoszewski, then Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs, had a speech which was devoted to European security. And at first he supported and confirmed Polish presence in NATO and Polish aspiration to the European Union. Then he accepted all the action of the European Union and NATO on the Balkans and the Eastern Europe. And at the same time, he stated that ESDP, initiated by European Union, is not sufficiently clear for Poland. It is what I said. If we not use till now properly the NATO possibilities, it is not fault of the NATO, but it is fault of those who are using those forces. And there is not reason to build another one structure which do not replace, but which will be the second. What for and who is going to pay for? Then it's necessary to define European strategic concept. Then it is necessary to show the geographic orientation of the use of European armed forces. The question is, are the European forces to defend our security in Europe? Or are European forces to serve in Iraq, in Afghanistan, or somewhere? Then it's necessary to name the situation which will enable us to use these forces. In which situation such a forces should be used? Then the manner of conducting military operation. Who will be in command? It will be a permanent command, or it will be named for the operation command. Then it is necessary to show and explain the relationship between the Union's second pillar, the common foreign and security policy, with the ESDP. Is it part, or it is something what is maybe something else than this common foreign and security policy? Minister Bartoszewski stressed that Poland did not have any reservation about SDP, but he expressed the fears that it could undermine NATO's effectiveness and lead to loosening the ties between the US and Europe in the security sphere. As you can see, still in Polish political thinking about security, the US support is the most important, and then the NATO. It's enough to say that 50% of all capacity in NATO is USA. And when we speak about the military expenditures, 80% of all expenditures in NATO are USA done. So, logically, the European security depends on the potential of NATO. So it's necessary to support at first the American presence inside NATO, because if USA, for example, withdraw his membership or support for NATO, what NATO will be worth? militarily and strategically. As you know, we observe the withdrawal of America from Europe. The Americans are resigning from the permanent military presence in Europe, and they are cancelling their bases in Europe. When any country would like to have American bases, is asked, pay for that. Then we will think about it. Because America see no more sense to stationing army in Europe, where is secure, clear, and stable situation for the last 60 years. And the American new strategies not only move to Pacific, but to enlarge the number of their presence where the conflicts occurred. The last conflict which occurred in Europe is Balkans. And if you compare the Balkan conflict with the other in all over the world, the intensity of this conflict is much smaller than the other conflicts in somewhere, and that even without the American support, Europe could solve, even militarily, if it is necessary, such a conflict. In 2003, European Union adopted security strategy for the organization, for the European Union. It is so-called Solana strategy. Solana because at the time Solana was foreign minister for European Union, so he was commissioner for the foreign affairs. But the document did not include any real strategic concept. It is only said that Europe should have strategy. Poland did not participate in the preparation of this document. Moreover, Solana strategy was never, in fact, the subject of wider debate inside the European Union. So there is a concept, but they are not the facts which will give to this concept political power, because were not officially adopted by anybody of the European Union. The problem for Poland started with so-called war on terror. As everybody remember, the November 11th marked new history of the international relations and is marking the real end of the 20th century and start of the 21st century. In our opinion, the American response after the 11th of November was fully understandable and fully legal from the point of view of NATO regulations. But we think that the main motive was not only to take revenge, but as much as it is possible to deprive terrorism the illusion of impunity. It was necessary from the very beginning to punish, just to show the power that we will not allow the terrorists to destroy our life. In 24 hours, NATO members acknowledge that situation is fulfilling Article 5 of the Constitution of NATO. One of the NATO members was attacked, so other members of NATO must help without any condition. And this way, Poland became the member of the war on terrorism, which was declared by President Bush. We can say that we have two parts or two sections of this war. The one it is the American presence in Afghanistan. The second is a NATO presence in Afghanistan. Then it was combined in one since 2006, and we have this Operation Enduring Freedom, or ISAF forces who are present in Afghanistan. But on between, we have the war in Iraq. At first with and then in Iraq. And it is not NATO operation. It is operation which was started by Americans and which was supported by 18 different states. Among those were Poland. At the moment we joined the Americans in the Iraq, we've been the NATO members. And as you know, NATO refused to participate in this operation. So for the first time, being a very young NATO member, we were confronted with the other members of the NATO organization. Even if the participation by the beginning of Poland in this operation in Iraq was rather symbolic, it was 180 soldiers. By the end, we've had about 1,500 soldiers and then 2,000 soldiers in Iraq and command over one province. So in numbers it was not so much, comparing with more than 200,000 soldiers from the USA. But as I told you, much more important was to have Polish flag than to have Polish soldiers, because it meant that USA is not alone in their choices and is supported by its allies. Choosing America for Poland was a continuation of policy looking for strategic partnership with USA. But very soon it was proved that it is an illusion, that relations between Poland and the USA are, and probably will be asymmetric. That if we from India are too small and too less powerful, what about the USA? How to seek for the partnership, strategic partnership with USA, having such a potential as we have. The placement of Poland in Central Europe today is not a great deal for the America, because there are many other countries where America can place the installation or to look for strategic partnership. And not far away is Germany, the biggest and probably the most reliable partner of the USA. The other problem for Poland is that the new American strategy after 2002 was based on the preemptive strikes, when the NATO strategic concept since 1999 was reactive and defensive. So America is doing offensive strikes before the NATO is reacting when something is done. And for Polish policy and diplomacy, it is a problem too. How to react in such a situation? Looking at the USA or looking at the NATO? To choose the USA strategy, the biggest partner in NATO, or to follow the concept of NATO? We can say that from our activity and unconditional support of the USA, Poland had not any clear benefits, no political, no economic, no ideological. We can say that the only benefit we've had, it's a military benefit. It means that the Polish soldiers today are better equipped and better trained than ever. And that during last years, from the moment we have joined NATO and the NATO operations everywhere, plus Iraqi experience, almost 100,000 Polish soldiers took part in the really operations. So they are really soldiers, not trained on the polygons, but they are trained in the real war. So the generals could be happy. But the costs, political costs, moral costs, and the costs of the dead people, because during all of this operation we lose altogether about 100 Polish soldiers. It is the greatest cost of military activity outside Poland. Polish involvement in activities of the stabilization forces, ISAF, in Afghanistan started from 100 soldiers too. Then rised to almost 2,000 soldiers, and today we have 1,200 soldiers, and there is a decision which has been taken by the Polish government that we are finishing our presence in Afghanistan January 2013. December 2013. The last contingent, 500 soldiers, was sent to Afghanistan 2 months ago, and they will be coming back during the spring 2014. There is some agreement between Polish government and Afghani government about some, how to say, policeman battalion to train Afghani police. I do not believe in such a training, because during last years more than 150,000 of them were